Welcome, everybody, to the Halfway Cafe. Thanks for tuning in as everybody comes in. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday night. It's nice to know we're not speaking out into the void. Um, we got some big news to talk about today. A great election for Democrats. Um, Pretty substantial wins for Democrats. Republican turnout was like super, super low. What were your kind of big thoughts and takeaways before we get into kind of the meat of what was going on?
Well, as a resident of Virginia, I thought it was great. 15 points is huge. Like that is like pre-Bush. That's like 1980s and before type shutouts kind of. I mean, to some extent, like 15 points is kind of a shutout when every county in the state goes more blue.
Yeah.
Multiple demographics that went for Trump in 2024 went
Yeah, I think it was
Democrat
every
pretty
single
hard.
district got more blue, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Big
And then,
wave.
yeah, and then New Jersey, like I remember people talking about how they thought that the Republican had a real chance. That Mikey Sherrill, right? Mikey Sherrill, they thought
Hmm.
might win by like 1 or 2 points, but that was 7 points, I think, total. So that's a huge win. And then they said like pretty much out of like the 18 big things to look at for Democrats, Democrats won all 18 of them. So pretty big night.
Yeah. Both those states, New Jersey and Virginia, have kind of been turning more purple in recent elections, and now they're both like substantially blue, especially Virginia. They got almost to two-thirds, almost like a supermajority of the legislature. I think they flipped 13 seats in total. So
Hmm.
like that's a pretty great victory. Also, of course, California Prop 50 passed, a pretty brazen, blatant partisan redistricting scheme by Gavin Newsom. And what do you think about that? Do you think Gavin Newsom's kind of like the front runner because of that for 2028? Like he's kind of leading the governors. Pretty badass move. A lot of other liberal states are kind of like holding back and not trying to do this brazen redistricting. But I think in the Trump era, with just this insane partisan kind of bullshit the Republicans are pulling. Like, Democrats need to get in the game and fight fire with fire, don't you think?
If I had to guess, I would imagine Gavin Newsom wakes up every morning at 3:30 a.m. freaking out that some Democrat has already announced that they're going to run. He's probably terrified that he won't be the first to announce or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, I think.
does that make him the front runner? I don't know. I think I, I mean, I think it's gonna. There's no way he's not gonna run. He's 100% gonna run, and then it's just
Yeah.
a matter of like, do enough Democrats who are likely to vote in the early primaries like what he's doing now? Do they know about the shit posting he's been doing and trying to, fight shit with shit,
Hey, I'm
which
for the shit posting. I think followers of the halfway post will know I get right in the dirt and mud with Donald Trump and
with the
Republicans.
best of them.
Yeah, with the best of them, I can keep up with anybody. I might not be the best, but I can keep up.
Well, I
How
have
do
a
you feel
question
like?
for you. Well, I was
Yeah,
going to
go ahead.
say, and it's probably what you're going to get into anyway, but like the fact that both Mikey Sherrill and Spanberger are pretty moderate Democrats. I know Spanberger had a little bit of uh, some issues actually criticizing other Democrats for not being rational and not being moderate enough. So between them winning and then Zorhan only winning, Mandani only winning 50% or so, do you think that's like a win for the moderates, or what are your thoughts on that? Obviously, in New York, it was two Democrats, so he was really fighting the previous governor. So obviously, he had high name recognition, and you know, Mandani was obviously pretty tarred and feathered as a socialist, pretty hardcore. So I wonder if that had to play with it. But what do you think?
Yeah, I wrote about this in my article like yesterday. I think that the number one thing is the Democrats should pick appropriate candidates. I think Mamdani was a very appropriate candidate for New York City, which is way more liberal than New Jersey and Virginia. I think both Cheryl and Spanberger were appropriate, like locally relevant candidates for more moderate states than, obviously Big Blue New York City. So I think the lesson for Democrats is definitely like go with the candidate that gets attention, can excite the base. There's very different electorates all across the country, and if Democrats are gonna be super competitive, or not even super, just competitive at all, in states like Mississippi, Alabama, like um, I've been hearing this a lot, which I think is cool. Like a lot of people are on the same page, but Democrats got to get rid of this litmus test where everyone has to have the exact same unelectably liberal positions. And I think the secret to winning big in 2026 and especially 2028 is having Democrats that agree with you on 90% of the stuff you like and believe in, but having that 10% wiggle room of like, okay, the candidate is from rural Mississippi. They're obviously not going to have the same positions as the person running for the mayor of New York City, So I think that's the biggest thing is just Democrats need to have a big tent. They need to have pro-life, pro-gun candidates to win in pro-life, pro-gun areas. I just think diversity in a big tent, anti-authoritarian election that 2026 and 2028 are going to certainly be like that's the key.
No, I agree. I think it's a lot of normal people running. Some of the
Yeah.
Democratic Party's biggest flops have been Hillary Clinton and Kamala
Yeah.
Harris now, who most people, on a good day, the best thing you could say about them was that they were like extremely zeroed in on what they thought everyone around them wanted to hear in that moment. And I think it came off as
Yeah.
inauthentic. When you look at a lot of the Democratic governors that people talk about and talked about who should have been able to run against Kamala Harris and that however short a primary it would have had to be. But like Josh Shapiro, Gretchen Whitmer, like even Gavin Newsom, like he's just a real person who is himself. Granted, Gavin Newsom, I think, is a little more of a politician than others, but there's a lot of people who are really big in the Democratic field right now who I think are just genuine, authentic people. And I think would probably, in my opinion, have done much better than Kamala Harris in 2024. And I think that they would probably have the
Yeah.
best chance of going somewhere for the Democrats in a positive way in 2028.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think, a big thing right now is a lot of Democrats are saying like we can't throw minority groups under the bus, in terms of like moderating your positions on a lot of things. But I don't think it's necessarily throwing people under the bus.
Yeah,
It's like the Ezra Klein kind of bit that he's been going off on his podcast. It's just like when Democrats lose across the board, they have no power. They control no branch of government. They control neither house of Congress, neither chamber of Congress, right? So right now, they are not helping any minority group. They cannot help any minority group, right? It's just 2 years now of Republicans controlling Congress doing, whatever they want, or I guess not doing whatever they want because they can't even keep the government open. But that's like a different story. But
yeah.
it's like it's if you want to help marginalized people, you have to have some political power. And unfortunately, it's like the metaphor of the sausage making machine, right? Politics is sometimes a little bit messy, but everything comes down to: did you win the election? Do you have any power? Do you have the gavel? Do you have any you have a majority in the Supreme Court? Like Democrats can't help anybody. They're throwing everybody under the bus if they don't get elected.
Yeah, I agree. And the same thing, people talked about Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. They still voted for the things that were the biggest bills
Yeah,
that Congress did when Biden was president,
right.
especially early on. And the same thing, like, so if you elect someone who's pro-gun, anti-abortion, that probably means they're still going to vote for a judge who is,
Yeah, Joe
pro.
Manchin voted for all the Democratic,
Yeah,
I guess most of them, right? And you look at the election, and like West Virginia voted for Trump in 2018, or sorry, 2016. In West Virginia, Trump beat Hillary Clinton 68 to 26%, right?
yeah,
He beat Joe Biden in West Virginia in 69 to 30%. Joe Manchin managed to win by 3% in 2018. And again, like I wrote this in my piece, I wish we had 100 Joe Manchins right now because it means Democrats would have some power in government. They'd be able to investigate Trump, maybe impeach him again, right? It's just Democrats have no power because they kicked out all the Joe Manchins because they weren't like morally pure enough or unelectably liberal enough. And I think the lesson here is that, like Big Ten politics requires very diverse candidates.
yeah. Well, it's interesting too because it says a lot about the American people with the amount of party switching that goes on. You have people who will vote for president and literally a year later vote for the other party because they don't like what's
Yeah.
going on. Which I think that goes back to the point I've made multiple times, which is I think I'm a man of the margins, and I think more Americans are. We have that conversation with Brett all the time, but it's like uh, do we just run the most far left people and try to like whip up the base? And it's like I don't think that's a good idea personally. I think the other night was a good win for just moderate people who, like you say, fit the state they're in and they fit the election they're running for. But like if you had just taken far left people and just put them everywhere, I don't think the Democratic Party would necessarily. You asked me last time, what should the
Yeah.
Democratic Party do? And I think last night was a good example of, you know, they want to push back on Trump because whether it's Obama, Trump, Biden, people just have this perception that, oh my God, the president or the political party that's in the White House is doing too much. I can't, oh my God, I can't handle it. And then like they immediately vote for the other political party. So like my assumption is that most Americans don't want the government to do many big things very fast. And I think the other night kind of shows that and pinpoints it. So for the future, I think Democrats should just focus on authentic people who are just going to do the things that they say and believe. And single payer healthcare. Like, are you going to risk losing nationwide, having all the Democrats and all the down ballot votes go lose as well, just because you're so committed to just one issue and it's so ideologically polarizing to the other side? I don't know. That was the big thing with Obamacare. Obamacare, they wasted all their political capital on something that was, at the end of the day, the most watered down version of what any Democrat would have wanted or would have liked to do. And it still cost them the 2010, 2012, 2014 elections, at least in Congress, even though Obama got
Yeah,
reelected in
but
2012.
yeah, but what's the point of being in government? I think Obamacare, like right now with the shutdown and everything, and these premiums going up, and then Republicans like just repeated failures to repeal it because they don't have a plan, and there really isn't a plan. Like, there's no way you can repeal it without just like screwing over like the 25 or whatever plus million people who depend on
Well,
Obamacare.
Well, I think it's like the big the too big to fail, like big beautiful bill type thing. Like they just maybe Obamacare was too big and it allowed people to think that the government was doing too much too quick. If Congress could have just passed a law that said, children up to the age of 26 are allowed to be on every company's healthcare plans for people. You know what I mean? Like all the little things that people think are really positive could have been individual bills that probably would have been a hell of a lot easier to pass really quick.
Yeah,
Um, and then like, I don't know what that means for the Obamacare exchanges and subsidies and stuff. Like the subsidies that people are talking about now really only came about during COVID, so that's a complicated issue. But I think like Democrats, if they get power again, they should just do as minute but as targeted beneficial things as they can, and prevent the perception, which now every political party since probably George W. Bush has made a lot of the country think, oh my God, they're doing too much. I can't have this. Let's vote for the other party. I mean, think about that. Like you're so polarized, you vote for one person for president, and then millions or even tens of millions of people, if these elections are any indication, are just willing to throw that vote away, be like, I'm disappointed and angry. I'm going to vote for the other political
yeah.
party.
It is kind
If
of
a
annoying
political
that we.
party can't keep their voters in 1 year, I mean, it kind of shows that, like, obviously the perception of what they're doing is not filtering
Well,
down. Trump is a
yeah,
unique case because he's like taking people off the streets and throwing them in vans and deporting them to South Sudan or whatever, and that's pretty fucked up. But that's an extreme case. But obviously, the backlash happened against Biden and Obama to some extent too.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's chaotic that we've been going back and forth so much. I mean, you look at like since 2006, really, we've had so many just complete swings, right? Like 2008, Obama, massive, like both chambers of Congress and the presidency.
2009.
2010 loses, the House or the Senate or whatever, and then loses the total government. Obama wins re-election. Trump comes over. They get full government. Peel away the House first, and then the Senate. Biden's got control again, and so it's been like a little bit of whiplash. But to me, this ties into the filibuster thing right now. Like Trump is trying to push Republicans to get rid of the filibuster, and if we're going to be so polarizing, pendulum swinging every 2 years, maybe that's a good idea. Maybe we can actually, if we get rid of the filibuster and just let the Congress do what the people who get elected to the Congress say they're going to do, maybe you would have a more lasting coalition in politics in terms of like if Republicans really do all the things they want to do without the hindrance of the filibuster, and then finally they do the things they always, they lie to their voters saying we're gonna like totally get rid of Roe v. Wade, like all their whole like wish list of everything they want to do. But maybe that would be good to actually get some action, because right now every 2 years we switch and switch sides in the chambers of Congress, and like we for the last like 20 years we've actually been pretty gridlocked.
Yeah, but that kind of proves my point that I've been thinking about a lot, which is a lot of Americans don't want things to change, and I think when people start changing, a lot of the voters get really pissed off and angry for sometimes obviously misplaced and misinformed reasons. But I think that's a good reason or a good strategy for Democrats to be in the middle. I think going too far left, too far right, there's an inevitable backlash, and we've seen that time and time again. So, like, I almost think my preferred campaign plan would be I am not going to start any new programs. I'm just going to make the ones we already have meaningfully and marginally better. And it's like, could you create a situation where you start using little regulations to actually, well, I mean, like for example, like okay,
That's
so
not very inspiring to get elected, I guess.
yeah, but that's the
More of the same, slightly better micro improvements.
yeah, but no, I mean, it's like I think that is a more mature way to handle governing a country with 340 million people with a very disorganized set of beliefs and a lot of conflicting beliefs. For example, like a lot of people like their healthcare, right? That's just a fact of life. A lot of people are afraid of socialism. They don't understand it. Does that mean that the government couldn't meaningfully take a little bit extra money from people's paycheck and donate to HSAs? Does that mean that they could have meaningful regulations that keep the worst excesses of the insurance companies doing the worst things, which I would argue Congress and the requisite bureaucracy in the federal government ought to be tackling anyway. But if you're going to say we're gonna scare everyone by undoing the entire system, throwing millions of people out of work, like that's another thing. Like the fact that if you were to really create a single payer system from the government for healthcare, you're literally throwing 3 million people out of work. Granted, they have a lot of rent seeking jobs, which are bad and toxic to the economy, right? Like the amount of people whose whole job is to tell hospitals, fuck you, we're not paying you or giving you your money. Like that's a bad job that doesn't need to exist, but there's thousands of people with that job. That being said, that's like, public policy. There's downsides to everything. So if you were to meaningfully improve a system and you throw thousands of people out of work, that's bad. But again, if you have a small, meaningful change in the right direction, and course like the aircraft carrier that is America, a quarter of a degree more to the left or right, and not just swing all the way to the left and say, fuck it, we're ending the filibuster, we're doing everything. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't see how you would possibly like survive politically 1 year, let alone 2 years later.
But a countersuit, like if Democrats, let's say there's like a big blue wave, would you want Democrats to like add more Senate seats, like, bring in DC and Puerto Rico estates? Would
Yeah,
that be too
like
much too fast?
yeah, Puerto Rico and DC are already territories with American citizens with American passports. That is a marginal, small, meaningful improvement as opposed to let's take Greenland and make that a state. Let's make Canada with 40 million people a state.
Yeah.
Like that is stupid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Small, meaningful change. It is uninspiring, but it's a mature adult way of governing a country, I think.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. Let's talk about the gerontocracy. It was a bad day for the gerontocracy on the on
Yeah.
Tuesday night. Obviously, age is not the main thing that got the Democrats elected. But I looked it up, and you can't help but notice that Mikey Sherrill is 53. Her opponent was 63, 10 years older. Abigail Spanberger is only 46. She ran against a 61-year-old and won. Mamdani is 34, my age, and he beat a 67-year-old who, Andrew Cuomo would have been over 70 years old at the end of his term. So, do you think that's has any salience with Democrats generally? Is that something that in the primaries, age and not to say ageism, but I mean certainly I think if you're over 80, you should probably not be running for reelection, right? Like if you have to go to bed at like 8 p.m. and you
Yeah.
can't be like Mamdani, like staying up all night and just doing campaign events, just like 5 a.m. and up till like 1 a.m. in the morning. Like if you have to be helped down the stairs, like a lot of our politicians are nowadays, if you get that McConnell thing where you just stare at the wall, should those people should that be a bigger like party wide push of just like fuck no, retire, you
Yeah.
dinosaur?
It's an interesting theory, right? Like we talk about whether or not Democratic politicians should be more like progressive, far left. Would that motivate people to vote? Maybe the secret sauce is not having a skeleton.
Yeah.
Like maybe
Purple-handed,
yeah,
skeleton-fingered representatives.
yeah. Like I don't know. There are a lot of presidents in the past who were like in their 40s. I think we should go back to that. I mean, essentially what you've done is you've taken like an entire generation and a half of people and said, fuck you, you don't get the White House. And then we've just had the
Yeah,
same
right.
generation. It's also like, I don't know, the same generation that has like basically destroyed the environment, the social safety net, the cultural idea that and societal view of like that other poor people deserve to have a fighting chance in the capitalist system we
Yeah,
live in. The idea that you
right.
would regulate something and take a little bit of your own money and just give it to the public good, and you say fuck, I don't know. I think maybe that was a. I think I don't know what I'm trying to say other than yes, I agree with the idea that I think the
Yeah.
gerontocracy should end, and young people would probably
Well, yeah.
get more votes
Well,
than old people.
the legacy of the boomers is very interesting, and not to like paint too broad of a stroke of all boomers. Obviously there's plenty of boomers who like agree with us on some of this stuff, but like you look at the age of like Nancy Pelosi being 85, like the governor, I wrote about this, the governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, was born in 1944. And then the just beautiful example is Senator Chuck Grassley, who came into politics, started politics in 1958 when Dwight Eisenhower was president. Like he was born in 1933. 2033 is only 8 years away. Like he's like
Wow.
over 90 years old. Like why is that guy not retiring, right? And it's like even criticizing boomers, like the three people I just mentioned are the generation prior to the boomers. They're the silent generation. So not only are boomers like clinging to their jobs and not retiring and hoarding their wealth and not moving, like downsizing and like letting homes go to like younger families and stuff like that. Like this is the the silent generation that it's going to be like, what's the goal? Are they trying to like just have a heart attack and die in their office and have some like congressional 18-year-old page just find their corpse? Because I don't
Well,
know.
yeah,
Is that the
I think
goal?
yeah, they're also doing stuff like there's a lot of old people voting in local elections, and then I've heard a lot of people, the people in Breaking Points talk about this all the time, but the fact that like old people are voting that they shouldn't have to pay for like property tax that goes to like schools because they don't have any children anymore. And I think that is like that is the last dying breath of a generation that says fuck everyone, just
Yeah.
not me. And like, they bring up a funny point, and I had no idea. They said 1% of the federal budget pays for dialysis for like Medicare, Medicaid, and it's like, fuck, I don't use dialysis. Why should I fucking pay for that? And it's like, obviously,
Yeah.
you don't get to pick and choose what your specific tax dollars go to. But for old people to be like, yeah, why should I have to pay for schools? Fuck that. Like as if when they were kids and like parents growing up with young kids, like other old people weren't paying for their children's schools. So I don't know. I just think it's amazing. They want to die with their money. They want to die with their political offices, and they want to die with
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
power they've accumulated over
Yeah.
the. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say, but let's see. What did you
Keep
think
moving.
of Mamdani name dropping Eugene Debs in his victory speech? Is that a good idea? Like Republicans are kind of pouncing on it, calling them like socialists, and obviously they're a little ignorant when they call him a communist because he's obviously not communist. But I, for one, enjoyed it because Eugene Debs was a badass who, he was a political luminary for a long time. He was a hero for a lot of people. And I was looking it up. The election of 1912, in which Teddy Roosevelt split from the Republicans against Taft, and then Wilson won. Eugene Debs got 6% of the vote in that election, with Teddy Roosevelt going on his own party, third party as well. So I think if more people knew history and like especially
Yeah.
things like socialism, if more people were familiar about like how much good things in this country that is directly because of socialists fighting, campaigning, and literally dying in some of those like 1880s, 90s, 1910s strikes that they did. It's like why we have the weekend, 8-hour work weeks, why our food's not all poison. Like the whole progressive era was all socialism, and that's kind of like what we're coasting on. Like America's like all the subways
Well,
got built in that time period.
the progressive era wasn't like totally socialism, from my understanding. I mean, there was a much bigger social dynamic, and it was kind of very
But yeah, of course they're not all
Christian based in a
socialists,
lot
but
of ways. But
yeah,
like, it was just that people would give back. I mean, that's like a societal view that if
right.
society helped you get to a position where you have unimaginable wealth, like some of those robber barons had, that you would just give something back. And a lot of them, it wasn't socialist per se. They were just trying to like create things like libraries that would help people who took it upon themselves. The progressives were weird because they also had an idea that like most people were lazy, but like you could teach lazy people not to be lazy and they could be
Yeah.
better, more contributing members of society. So it's not like government, like money and taxpayer money going to you for like any random idea. It was just that like, well, more people ought to be able to pick themselves up by their own bootstraps. We will help facilitate that. And I would say it wasn't until probably Roosevelt, like Franklin Roosevelt, where some of the actual like social safety net and like socialism as a whole kind of started taking uh, root in American culture. But yeah, I mean, I think name dropping old politicians and make people Google who the fuck Eugene Debs was is a good idea. I hope a hundred
Yeah.
thousand people had to like read one thing about what American politics used to be like, and I hope that's positive.
Yeah. Real quick, speaking of the ageism thing, I published this like Wednesday morning about Nancy Pelosi, hoping that she commits to retiring, but she did announce today that she is retiring, which, kind of going with our earlier statements, she's like 85 years old. So,
40 years.
what?
She like in politics for like 40 something years, and like
Oh,
that's like
yeah.
I understand like the argument for term limits, like for and against, and I think like having someone who's been in power for 40 years is by itself an indictment on not having term limits, I guess, especially in Congress. But
Well, it's
what do you think?
interesting because you get the older candidates, and there is a good reason that, like, if you had term
Sure.
limits and you just have way more turnover, it just means there's more inexperienced people in government, and then they're like more beholden. They're more beholden to the special interests and lobbyists and stuff who will just write stuff and hand it to them, and they don't have the contacts and the relationships and things like that. And there's definitely, I would say that was a strength of like Joe Biden being president with like keeping European solidarity was just like he's been in politics for so long. He literally knows every single world leader and the amount of stuff he got Europe to commit to. And like during like COVID and the Ukraine invasion and everything like that was pretty good. However, you get to the point though that you need the youth to like keep things vibrant. Like that's the reason democracy is better than all the other forms of government where you don't get just routine churn and burn of politicians and representatives. Like you need new faces, new ideas, new generations taking over, you know?
Yeah, but I disagree with the idea on the premise of like the idea that like we need old people who've been in power forever because they know how things work. But like, a lot of those people would just leave and start consulting agencies. A lot of them, it used to be that like a lot of politicians used to want to be like the elder statesmen who just like weren't in office, but like all the people in office would come to for advice and
Yeah.
like to hear what they had to say or what they thought about issues that they maybe had more intimate knowledge of from their own political history. But I think like the idea that you would personally be in office forever and have nothing better to do for decade after decade
Yeah,
is
Chuck
bad.
Grassley.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I mean, like, think
Let's
about it.
see.
Imagine you said you're 34, right? So imagine you were in Congress right now and like, do you think you'd be the best person in the 2080s to be determining public
Right.
policy for America? Like when you go from a country like, let's say America goes from like 340 million people to like 800 million people or a billion people in 50 years, like you're gonna be like, yep, I'm still the guy born in the
Yeah, right.
90s, like who I know better than everyone else. But I don't know.
Yeah. Let's talk about the gerrymandering because I think something really funny about this new election result is that Republicans might be really fucking themselves over with the gerrymandering because when you get a blue wave situation, if they take all these like R plus 10 plus 15 plus 20 districts and turn them into R plus 5 plus 8 or plus 3 to try to steal as many seats away from Democrats as possible, when you get a blue wave election where all of a sudden like the generic ballot has Democrats like plus 9, like all of those seats that you just watered down to try to steal as many as possible, you'll lose them all in a blue wave. So do you think Republicans will kind of back off on some of this? Like they've done a few states, but I know like Utah and Indiana are still looking into doing it. I don't know if Missouri has like finalized their map, that they were looking into it as well.
Yeah, I think obviously I'll say it's like it's bad that we're gerrymandering every state. But I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, if Republicans are going to do it, I'm glad Democrats are doing it too. They kind of have to, like, if you really care. But I guess into
Yeah.
like a position of power thing, and we've talked about this a lot. Like, do you wield the power you have for the things that you believe in and things that you want to do? And I think this current crop of Democrats, especially in states like whether it's Gavin Newsom, I know Spanberger's talked to, and Democrats in Virginia have talked about doing it. Like, you kind of have to. Like, in a prisoner's dilemma type game with like a political party that's like out to just keep you from getting any power in any fair sense of an election or as you would expect in democracy, if they're just going to cheat and play dirty, you kind of have to join them, unfortunately.
Yeah. Speaking of like a potential blue wave, I think Republicans really ought to be concerned about the low enthusiasm and extremely low turnout. Like in California, Prop 50 won with like almost 2/3 of the vote, and like talk about that. Republicans in California stayed home to like they wouldn't even go leave their homes to vote against like a blatant partisan theft of like, what, up to five Republican House seats or something. So like, going forward, I think it's a big deal that Trump has not he's been fucking over so many of his own voters, right? Like farmers are no one's getting hit and destroyed more than farmers with these tariffs. Manufacturers all across the country are not being able to import stuff. And if they are, they're having to pay all these tariffs and then screw over their customers by passing on those costs. You get a lot of corporations that are probably not happy or thrilled about all of the economic uncertainty and the trade warring and all of that. So do you think that like kind of going forward that the enthusiasm gap is going to really widen? And it's, Trump said, I'm not on the ballot, so my people didn't vote. But, he's not going to be on the ballot ever again. He's certainly not going to be on the ballot in 2026. So is that something Republicans should be like hearing like alarm
Yeah.
bells ringing?
I mean, they should. Obviously, 2018 it's looking like it might be a repeat where Democrats win big. I think a lot of Republicans and marginally safe seats should be scared of losing their job. I hope that motivates them to try to stand out from the pack and look like they're more independent or at least rational or authentic to something
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
believe in and not just
That's what
whatever Trump says.
yeah. That's what I'm really looking forward to because, I mean, with all of the chaos, at some point, Republicans that care a little bit more about their own job than a mean tweet from Trump are going to have to break with him. Like, I imagine a lot of Republicans are starting to think about their 2026 strategies, and they're going to have to say, "Hey, I'm a maverick. I broke with Trump. I'm my own guy. I'm not beholden. I compromise with Democrats." Right. So, how do you think Trump is going to take that when like you get a lot of Republicans start to repudiate him publicly or distance themselves from his more like tyrannical, authoritarian, and like immoral actions? Like certainly with the deporting people and ripping families apart on the street, and then all of the masked ICE agents like abducting people. Like that's not going to look good in 2026, right?
Yeah. And I guess it depends on how many Republicans do it. Like if it's like 10 Republicans, Trump can threaten to primary them all. If it's 40, who are
Yeah.
trying to play it safe. I mean, it goes back to like Bill Maher's advice from his show like a couple weeks ago, like, hey, Republicans, just break with Trump on one thing. And it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, again, marginal, right? Would you prefer they never vote against Trump or would you prefer they at least vote against him on one thing? And it's like, well, I would take that, I guess. But I mean, the unfortunate thing too, in this larger conversation about gerrymandering and elections anyway, like the idea that we're so polarized and the people from parties kind of vote their own way every single time. But just like the idea that like we're gonna fight gerrymandering with more gerrymandering and we're gonna fight that with more gerrymandering when like the adult decision would be to probably try to create some fair process that's fair to both sides. Because we have two political parties, they're both Big Ten parties. Like the idea that we can't figure out a better way to do it than like, that what that picture you sent me of Illinois where there's like a tiny sliver of every
Chicago
single
gets into
district
every single district.
goes, yeah, every district touches a little part of Chicago to get those juicy Democrats. Like that's not, and okay, like it's funny, and like I'm saying like yeah, that's a bad thing. That's a blue state. It's a Democratic state, and like I think that's bad. But other than like getting off this high horse, I guess it's unfortunate that like the solution is more fair maps, not more ridiculously unfair maps. But I guess since
Yeah.
again, like you can't you can't fight or play fair with someone who's just going to throw the board every chance they get. So you might as well try to throw the board yourself too.
Yeah, and I wanted to remark just on like the media and like how much like legacy and institutional media kind of bends over backwards to like prove to like bad faith Republicans that they don't have a liberal bias. But I wanted to point out that Glenn Youngkin won Virginia in 2021 by 2 points, and it's like everyone in the media was like, "Future president alert right here!
Yeah,
Won Virginia with 2%." But Spanberger won by 15 points, and do you hear that anywhere? Is she a top of the list for presidential candidates? Or is it only, I wrote in my piece of just like JK, LOL. Everyone knows that the media only cares about Democrats, in that regard. But do you think Fox News will be doing the thing where they send reporters to go like maybe to drag shows and interview like
yeah, right.
drag queens and figure out how they missed the election mark so much and why voters are against them and try to empathize with the other side? But like, of course, obviously, the media is not going to not going to ask Mike Johnson about that.
Yeah. What is different? Like the cultural aspect is different. I think And this does not help Democrats socially or politically, but I think I don't know. Do you think there's a little bit of that like bias kind of ingrained, like the idea of like, how did we lose all these poor working people and voters? Like, how did we not convince them that we should just have trans everything everywhere shoved down their throat in their rural parts of Alabama? Like, to some extent, like that idea that like, how do these people not know how great we are? Like, I don't know if there is a little bit of ingrained like cultural bias in there somewhere. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's hard because like part of me, it's like this is such a giant like swing leftward in terms of like people reacting to Trump's tyranny and like repudiating it with their votes, right? But it's just, I mean, it's hard to like be empathetic when it's like Kamala Harris and all Democrats for the last like 4 years have been saying nonstop, if Trump gets elected, don't vote for him. He's going to start deporting like, as many people as possible. He's going to start, the blatant corruption again. He's going to sell out American foreign policy and national security to like Qataris and all these people that are just going to bribe him with cash. And it's like, everyone has been saying this for 4 years. And then Trump gets into office. Immediately, all of those things come true. And now it's like people are regretting their vote. And it's just, it's kind of like face palming that, literally everybody warned you this would happen and you still voted for Trump or didn't vote at all and sat at home,
No,
thinking,
I
oh,
mean, I
Kamala
agree.
Harris with Trump, they're the same. My life won't be any different depending on which one wins.
No, I agree with that. All that. I just think that like you were talking about the media specifically going to diners in red districts. Like, how did Democrats lose you? Like, I just don't think Republicans give a shit
Yeah,
like the way
they don't.
Democrats
Yeah.
do. But
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
way, I mean, it's
Right.
kind of like a legacy of that like cultural progressivism where it is kind of like the rich elite being like, oh, these poor people, I bet we can help them figure their lives out. And it's kind of like that I don't know, it's like a hero or savior complex in a way. And I think maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
I don't think
And
many
then you get the
people.
hypocritical limousine liberal aspect to it, where they're all, like it's the people who are like really rich in Hollywood with great lives that, don't, like aren't going into these like rural Rust Belt, forgotten towns, but
Yeah.
then it's like you get those Hollywood liberals that just think they're like so morally pure and the most righteous people. And every opinion they have is 100% on the right side of history and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think people just crave authenticity, and I think that's where the Democratic Party has struggled with the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I mean, even like Nancy Pelosi did a lot for this country and then stayed for probably 10 years too late. And then, had she just like left Congress and not just made a shit ton of money that made everyone hate her, right? The fact that she's just insider trading for years and years and years, like that's not authentic. Like it's almost to the extent where like maybe there should, whether publicly or behind the scenes, like every Democrat running for president, they should have some kind of competition where they go through the ringer to prove they're like a real human and can act like a real human.
Yeah.
Because, like, you
Well,
say what you will
yeah.
about, like, I'm not going to say, like, obviously, if Hillary Clinton had won instead of Trump, like, the country would have been much better off the following 4 years. But
Yeah.
she was an inauthentic, robot looking person who was pretending or masquerading as a normal person, but was really a reptilian politician under the surface. And I think Kamala Harris had some of those problems or had some of those problems as well. And I almost wonder if, like, the first Democratic debate should be like, can you chug a beer? Like, do you eat
Yeah.
like real meat? Like, I don't know. There's like a number of things I think Democrats' problem is authenticity with voters. And then obviously Republicans' problem is fucking ruining the country. So
Yeah.
it's
Right.
unfortunate that those somehow are symmetrical, but
Yeah.
that's like the political problem we
Right.
have.
And it's annoying too that like that our politics, especially this last election, like it's annoying how much it seemed to come down to who could be cooler on Joe Rogan's 3-hour podcast, right? But I mean, in terms of authenticity, it's like that's the truth. Like somebody like Gavin Newsom and like Pete Buttigieg can do that and just be themselves and talk for 3 hours. But like Kamala Harris was not able to do that, unfortunately. Like they poll tested everything she wanted to say and do until it just like was not really human anymore. And that's something that Democrats really need to get over. Like no more poll testing. Just be a real person. Put your foot in your mouth proverbially occasionally if it means you're just a real person that people don't look at you. And it's like it's the kind of thing where like the land acknowledgments. It's like every answer a Democrat says they have to list like 30 minority groups to include everybody. And then the one minority group that got left out, you see those people on Twitter bitching about it. What about us? What about our problems? Like, and it goes back to what I was saying about the litmus test kind of thing, where it's like Democrats need to get like just totally jettison the whole idea of a litmus test of boring everybody with their long professorial preambles to every answer so that they
Yeah.
include literally every possible perspective and like identity group in America. Um, let's see. I'm going on to the piece. These are some notes for a piece I'm actually going to publish tomorrow. But I'm curious on some of your thoughts. Um, let's see. Do you think?
Are you just
Actually,
reading
we
your
talked.
notes out loud right now?
No, well, I mean,
All right,
yeah,
give it to me.
it's a hey, this is called preparation. You don't seem to have any notes do you, for this conversation. What do you think about Trump's Oval Office getting like really gaudy and tacky with all the gold everywhere? Someone pointed out that like that's a sign of like dementia, and that like a lot of dementia people, like people's like older parents, they start like hoarding things and collecting things and putting them everywhere.
Didn't
And
you ever
I
see a
don't know.
picture of his like penthouse in New York City? The thing was lined with gold. Didn't he like shit on the
Yeah,
gold? I don't think that's pretty. That's normal, like
yeah.
Trump right there. That's baseline Trump.
Yeah, but I have a note that do you think that's like, this like gaudiness is like what happens when you don't have more gay friends? And like certainly Trump with his like dance moves where he literally looks like he's jerking off two guys into his face all the time. Like certainly a gay friend could be like, "Hey man, don't do that. It looks bad."
I don't know. I mean, Trump is like hardly the first like rich old white man to dance weird in front of a crowd.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. But I mean, Trump's particular
Maybe, yeah. Shout out to the gays. Yes, I don't know. Maybe more people in general need gay
yeah.
best friends or whatever.
Yeah. Here's something that I was a little peeved about is I don't think anyone's really talking much about like how much Elon Musk is like really to blame for a lot of this stuff, certainly in Virginia for like the utter shellacking of Republicans, because nobody was, obviously Northern Virginia was kind of the epicenter of his Doge wrecking ball and him like just pissing off everybody that has a government job or any job related to the government with all of like the insulting and like egomaniac firings and everything like that. So would you say it's a bad idea to just willy-nilly fire thousands of government bureaucrats if you hope to keep Virginia?
Well, and it's funny too, because like not only do you like make those bureaucrats' jobs terrible, you're also like, hey, go home for a month and think about what's going on before election day. Like if they were
Yeah.
smart, they would have opened the government like a couple days before the election. But no one pays me big dollars to strategize for them.
Yeah. Now, I've been kind of playing with the idea of like, I guess it's maybe not necessarily the most original idea, but just like repeatedly calling this Congress and especially Mike Johnson's like speakership of it as like a do nothing Congress. And so I looked up where that term came from, and it actually was something that Harry Truman lobbed against Republicans in like the Congress of like 1947 and 1948, I think, where they didn't really do a whole lot. They voted against a lot of his stuff. They did obviously like a lot of national security stuff in terms of like voting aid for Greece and stuff and like, starting the Cold War and that kind of thing. But I mean, this one really takes the cake that like we're in the longest shutdown in American history. And like, like, what do you think about Mike Johnson? I've been kind of thinking like calling him kind of like a cuck. Like he's like in the cuck chair, just watching Trump be Speaker of the House and like fuck the government. But like, Mike Johnson has a legacy, right? Like there's going to be a Wikipedia page about his term as speaker
Does he
and like
care?
how much, like, yeah, like, does he not care? He's just like so rolling over. They're not doing anything. Longest shutdown. I mean, like, obviously his job is kind of impossible because Republicans in the House are kind of made up of like one third relatively moderate normie Republicans and then like two thirds of just like crazy MAGA people that
Allegedly.
are that are either like just opportunistically trying to get in on the grift and just have an easy job and keep their staff and the benefits of the job without like, rocking the boat too much. And then you get like the hardcore, like real crazy MAGA people. They're like the true believers in all the racism and deportation stuff. But like, man, is there just a more pathetic Speaker of the House in American history than Mike Johnson?
And he's had his job longer than Kevin McCarthy.
I don't
I
know.
mean, like,
Do you think who would you rate better or worse? I mean, Kevin McCarthy was at least, he did some things. He had some power. Mike Johnson's just sitting back and just watching like his chamber just do nothing.
oh, no, I mean, like, no Republican in Congress has power. None of them know how to use it. None of them want it. None of them, they're, they would rather give up all of their power for years rather than have to like worry about getting one tweet from Trump calling him out. Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand it. Like, yeah, I think it's embarrassing. Like, knowing that, like, every day you go to work, it's like something that could go on a Wikipedia page that someone will, everybody, whoever Googled you will find. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty embarrassing. Granted, like, I don't really know. Does Mike Johnson give a shit about anything? Like, I don't know. Does he actually care? Does he want government to do anything in particular? Does he want that? Like, it seems like he wants to have his nose in Trump's ass. Like, I don't know if he wants to do anything else. What would he do, right?
I
You're
don't
kind
know.
of
You
judging
think,
him with a
yeah.
yardstick of what you would do in that position. Like, maybe he doesn't want to do anything. He
I'm
clearly would
no, it's
rather, like,
I'm judging him against like just like anybody having like any bit of power and having self-respect, I guess.
I mean, if I were him, like, I don't know, I'm not obviously not him, but like, if I were him, I would go out swinging. Like, I'm going to use every little fucking ounce of power. And if I get thrown
Yeah.
out, so be it. At least I did what I was wanting to do. Like, you're the
Yeah.
third most powerful person in the country. And you're like, yeah, I'm not even going to, let's all like, school's out for summer, guys. We're not coming
Yeah.
back because,
Right.
the Jeffrey Epstein thing will have to be released if we adjourn or whatever. So I don't know.
Did we talk about this last time? The idea that like, Congress people used to like love having power over the president and like loved having the legislative branch be like the more important with more
Oh, yeah.
responsibilities in government. And like that, yeah, like senators and representatives used to love telling the president, go fuck yourself. Like your term limited out. I'm the one who's going to be here forever, like with the, just getting reelection. And I've got my own little
No,
like fiefdom here in the House or Senate.
there's a funny bit of American like political history, which is just like the Senate from like the 1880s to like basically Franklin Roosevelt. And like Franklin Roosevelt came in with the New Deal and the idea that like, oh, we should bring smart people who can do stuff. And like the members of the Senate were so intransient and so high on their own fucking supply of power that like it literally got to a point where like senators didn't even have staffs, and then they were trying to like bitch and moan about like what like people who knew anything about agriculture were doing. And it was like kind of an impediment, but it was just like it got to a point where like the Senate was just so in over its head with like modern modernity. They're like they like the average senator had no fucking idea about how to do anything. Like some of them had staffs of like 5 people, and they're trying to like basically tell the whole country that they knew what was better about managing agriculture than like a fucking bureaucracy with thousands of people who knew what was going on. So I mean, like to that degree, they did actually believe that like they were more important than the president, and to some extent they were right. Right when Hoover was overseeing the government's response to the Great Depression, he didn't believe he could do anything. He didn't really want to do anything. That's a little simplified. And like Franklin Roosevelt really changed like the country's trajectory by coming in and saying, "I'm just going to fucking do shit, and we'll see if
Yeah.
it works. And like give me some slack if it doesn't work. At least I'm trying." But before that, like the Senate thought they were like running the whole government, and before Franklin Roosevelt, the Congress was like the most important branch to some extent. But that's totally different now. But now, I mean, now we have the complete opposite problem where members of Congress are afraid of their own shadow because they think it's a Trump tweet. They don't know what
Yeah.
to do. And even when they want to
Oh
do
God, what did
something,
Trump say?
they
Oh my God, I don't know. I don't know how to answer. Or you
yeah.
could do the Johnson thing where, like, and, Kevin McCarthy did like a lot of Republicans did this in the campaigns too, where they just, oh, I didn't see that. I didn't see Trump call a Girl Scout, a 12-year-old Girl Scout a cunt or something. I didn't see it. So I can't respond. And it's like, I hate the media, how they don't just be like, okay, well, I'm telling you right now. How do you feel about that? Like Mike Johnson's been using that like just nonstop. Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I got no opinion. And it's like, wow, we have the most empty-headed man leading the Republicans in the House. So it's good to
Yeah.
know he's got no opinions on anything.
Well, it's so weird too the way they treat like the 24-hour news cycle. Like the idea, like if you were really a member of like let's say a senator, and you have 4 years to go before you're gonna have to go up for re-election. Like, why are you so afraid to be like, yeah, I saw what
Yeah.
Trump tweeted. I thought it was fucking stupid. And if he doesn't like it, he can send people down to my office and fucking talk to me. Like, I'm still gonna
Yeah.
vote for the shit. Yeah, that's the funny thing.
Uh-huh.
It's like I'm still gonna vote for like I believe what he's doing. Like I don't understand why they can't just be like, yeah, I saw it and I thought it was a little immature. I wish the president wouldn't do that.
Right.
Like, is that a reason why 4 years from now, hundreds of thousands of your constituents are going to vote you out? Like, it's so
Right.
unlikely to me. I don't know, but
Yeah,
they're
that's
afraid.
annoying.
Fears of
Yeah, they
powerful
are
kingdom.
afraid. Do you think this last election gives you hope that Democrats might have a chance in states like Alaska, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Ohio, North Carolina, and Maine, like some of those Senate and House seats? Do you think maybe Democrats have a little bit of gusto, and now they've kind of seen the like case study on how to run an election that's like locally important, but without getting into all of the kind of like toxic national democratic branding problems that they have?
Well, I don't know about like winning tons of like Senate seats. Like I think it's probably still a pipe dream that they're going to win the Senate. But I think it, at the very least, this election should put like some fire underneath the butt of like the Democratic Party and some of the elites and stuff within the party. Just the fact that like yes, like knowing that Americans will vote for you, even though Democrats have like a 28% approval rating among the American people. Like that's a good thing. But then it's also like okay, just be real, just be a normal person, and like you will win. And I think that like that should open up room for people. I mean, I think you texted something just yesterday, right, about how many people have signed up to run for things. Like that's a positive
Yeah,
thing. Like I think every election, I mean, even in Virginia, like the whole back of the ballot was uncontested shit. Like, okay, the sheriff who gives a fuck, right? But there's like treasurer, all this stuff that like only one person was on the ballot for. Like, can't Joe Schmo be like, yeah, I'll fucking be sheriff? Like, I don't. Maybe that's not the
just to have a
best
Democrat
idea,
running, you
but
mean?
yeah, but like at least make the guy who's like probably gonna win like try hard. Like you know the
Yeah,
since
right,
I've lived in Virginia, then I'm not gonna Google this, but I recognize the name of the treasurer. Like fucking ran unopposed. Like I'm not saying they're doing a bad job. I don't know if they're doing a good job, but like really, no one else wanted to try to get that job.
right.
Like I don't know. And at the very least, like especially for like the more political ones, like okay, obviously, like yeah, you don't want your sheriff just being a partisan hack, but like you know the idea that like I mean, growing up in Missouri, the number of like the first couple times I voted, like half the shit was just there weren't even Democrats on the ballot anywhere. It's like, what the
Yeah,
fuck? You're not even gonna try? Like, you're not gonna make that guy at least like pretend not to be like the far right crazy guy who's gonna win a a primary by being the most crazy person and then win the election anyway because not a single Democrat stood up and said, "I'll fucking
yeah.
try."
Would you do that? Would you
I
put
mean,
your
not in
money where your mouth
Missouri.
is? No, like in Virginia.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it'd be fun to think about it. Yeah, I think a lot of people should do it. I don't know if me personally right now is going to do it. Like, I think there's 340 million people. I think
Yeah.
that's my I don't know. That's my shout out is more people should try more stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it is kind of political malpractice in terms of like the DNC or like, the leaders of the Democratic Party that like there's any races that there's no Democrat running, you know? Even if
For
you're
the
like,
record, I'm
hey,
not going to be sheriff of like fucking Norfolk, Virginia. I'm not going to run for treasurer, but
well, not with that attitude.
yeah, now
Uh, Here's moving on to the economy. Per CNBC, they had a report today that job cuts for October totaled 153,000, 183% surge from last month from September, and it's 175% higher than the same month a year ago. It was the highest level of job cuts since 2003, and has been the worst year for layoffs since 2009. So. Is that kind of evidence we're like already in a recession right now, and maybe we're not talking about it?
yeah,
You look at the stock market, and like basically we would be in a recession in the stock market, except for the AI bubble that is like keeping afloat just massive stock gains in like the big tech companies. Otherwise, the economy is looking pretty wobbly. Do you think there's a chance that the we get a recession and you know Trump gets a lot of economic blame, obviously, because a lot of this has to do with tariffs and the trade wars, just kind of like fucking international trade and certainly American trade.
well, yeah. I mean, like if you're a company, like, why the fuck would you hire someone? Like, especially if you make low, like, cheap crap from China that's 50% tariffs, 100% tariffs, 150%, threaten to, I'm going to
Yeah,
tariff
yeah,
them to the moon and
right.
back. Like, why
a
the fuck would you
thousand
hire people?
percent.
Yeah. I mean, it's irrational. Like, you literally have shit coming on a boat on a cargo ship, and like, you're just like hoping to God that Trump doesn't have a bad day and like
Yeah,
double the amount of money you're going to have to pay for the product to come
yeah,
into
right
this
before it
country.
docks.
Yeah, and it's like, why would you like? I don't. That's like one of those things. Is like a lot of people debate right now between AI and the amount of people that were hired during like COVID or after COVID, how many tech jobs, software jobs, coding jobs, and stuff that are being replaced, versus just people. I don't like my boss. I don't like this job. I don't like the commute. I'm going to quit. And then, oh, well, I have money, so I'm going to like live off the land for a little bit. So I don't know necessarily if we know 100% like it's massive amounts of people being like fired and laid off, or it's just people not being replaced. But I do know that like I think it's fair to say that it is probably a uncertain environment that probably doesn't make sense for a lot of companies to invest in new stuff, and all that stuff collectively is going to hurt the economy. I hope there's not a recession, but I think it's probably likely. Those numbers you just cited are pretty bad.
Yeah. Trump's got 3 years to go, and like things are looking pretty bad for the economy. So, you think we might have a Hoover style second Trump term
I
here of
hope
just
not.
like shitting in the fan and him not doing anything?
Well, that would
Especially
be
because now,
horrible.
well, I mean, obviously it'd be horrible. It'd be good for Democrats, I guess, in theory of like having to like once again clean up just a giant clusterfuck mess that Republicans are leaving them. But it's not like Trump has hired a lot of people that are really that competent at doing things. Like, a lot of the people he's picked because they're good at brown nosing, or he just likes the way they look on Fox News weekend shows and things like that. So I don't have great confidence that if we have like an economic meltdown, that the Trump administration is going to be able to handle it well.
Yeah, probably not. Trump's not going to take blame. You know, it's probably hard
Yeah.
to correct course when you're like, I
Yeah,
didn't do
a year
anything
and a
fucking
half in,
wrong.
he's still blaming Biden. This is the Biden depression.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, Biden tariffed China, Falcon Briston on a whim, and then tacoed out.
I mean, they'll try to do that probably, I'm sure. Like, that's like the funny thing is like I was talking to people at work, like, oh, Republicans say this, oh, the Democrats say their government shut down and it's like, you fucking listen to Mike Johnson. You think Mike Johnson's gonna fucking tell you the truth?
Yeah,
Like, you're like, oh, you're talking to one of the top three on either like on the Republican side. You think like he's gonna badmouth Republicans on Fox News? Yeah, we're really in over our
yeah,
heads. We've no fucking idea how to get out of this shutdown. Like, I
yeah,
wish we would show leadership, but we don't
yeah.
have any, and we're afraid. So, like, that's just not
And
going to happen. So,
and it's so dumb too because like Democrats have gotten nothing. Republicans have made no deal. You're right. Trump has made no deal. Like, right off the bat, Trump, who thinks he's the greatest deal maker to ever happen to the universe, right? Like, has had the two longest government shutdowns while he was president. Pretty big coincidence there. But on top of that, like, Republicans are offering Democrats nothing. So now they're blaming Democrats for not just giving them votes for this shitty budget that they don't want and didn't get any input into. So it's like such a ludicrous idea to blame Democrats when Republicans are not doing anything to get any of the votes. And they don't even have the votes on their own to get rid of the filibuster to just pass it on a simple majority that they could do, right? Like, I don't think Collins, Murkowski, Tom Tillis, maybe even Mitch McConnell are going to nuke the filibuster to do this. So, John Thune in the Senate, like, there has to be some deal. I don't think they have the votes to kill the filibuster. And on top of that, like, insult to injury, it's like Republicans are the ones who revolutionized this whole modern filibuster to just obstruct literally everything in government anyway. So it's real rich of them to blame this on
yeah,
Democrats for one time doing the strategy the Republicans have been doing literally for 20 years straight.
yeah, and it doesn't even make sense because like the government shutdown is ostensibly about the Obamacare subsidies, which they keep trying to say, oh, the Democrats are trying to give illegals free healthcare, which is not what it is. But then also like we're still spending probably 300 billion extra dollars a month. Like like how much are these Obamacare subsidies? They've probably spent more. We've probably added more to the debt than the whole value of these Obamacare subsidies in the first place. So I don't even understand why they're on this hill to begin with. Do you know?
It's just partisan shit. They have nothing else, And in terms of Obamacare, it's like Obamacare passed in 2010. That was 15 years ago, and they still don't have a plan. They've been trying to repeal it forever. They've failed. And it's, Johnson was saying like, oh, we have a plan, but I'm not going to disclose it to you, the media. It's like bullshit, right? Like they have no plans whatsoever. And I think that's just kind of the political malpractice. And that like you've had 15 years and you still haven't done your homework. Like you can't even throw out one idea to a journalist asking you to your face on live television what one of your grand ideas to finally repeal and replace Obamacare is.
Because they can't lie. He can't go to the camera and be like, "Yeah, we keep talking about it. We have no good idea. We just have no good ideas. Like
Yeah.
like we don't even think we can figure it out. Like they're
Well,
not
it's
going to
like
say that. So
it's like you said, Obamacare ended up being like the most watered down progressive possibility of some kind of public option of healthcare anyway. So once they repeal it, like there's just nothing Republicans can do. And then like thankfully, all these years there's been at least a handful of like relatively sane, moderate, empathetic Republicans that are not willing to just kick off like 25 plus million people. The whole thing is just that, with Obamacare is you're tied to your job. You cannot leave. That's bad for the economy if you're dependent on healthcare. And all the people who are self-employed, they don't have an option. If they don't make enough money to have their own healthcare plans for them and their families. So it's like you're just fucking over all of these people just to kill something that Obama did. It's like sociopathic behavior kind of like killing someone's fish, like making eye contact and like
Yeah.
flushing their fish down the toilet just because you're feuding with them or something.
Yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
what was I gonna say? Um, I don't know.
Must
I
have
don't
been
remember.
great.
Yeah, it
Uh,
must have been great.
yeah. Do you have any predictions about when the health like how much longer the shutdown can go? Because like pretty
Oh,
soon these SNAP the SNAP funding, I guess like with food stamps, a judge I guess is mandating Trump reinstitute the funds for SNAP like tomorrow, I think. But like pretty soon they're gonna I don't know if this is a baseless threat, but the what is it the FAA guy or whatever is saying they're gonna start like limiting like 10% of air travel around the country at like 40 major airports. So that's gonna start having some real pressure. I mean, imagine if there's like like there was that plane crash with that the UPS plane or whatever. Like there were a couple there was a near miss, I think today or yesterday I saw in the news. So I think like the pressure is really mounting, but like, do you have any predictions on how much longer Republicans can hold out? Because
well, it's
obviously
how it
it's
should
them
be.
holding out.
Like the whole moving pots of money around to pay individual groups of people for things that you want, like the military, it was stupid. Like I'm not for military people, obviously not going without pay. But if you're gonna shut down the government, like fucking shut down the government and then try to do your job to open it again. So I think that whole part is stupid. Probably unethical too. Like you're just trying to fake and minimize the most politically the least politically palatable results from your shitty actions and shitty inability to govern. But I don't know. I think it's good that people get fed. I'm pro that, pro SNAP. Like I was I was talking just today actually at work today, like who's the biggest benefactor of SNAP? Well, it's poor people who need food, but it's also farmers and it's also grocery stores. And it's like every single political like policy the Democrats have put up in like 80 years benefit like more than just like the group of lazy people Republicans hate. So in that way, it's like, I don't know, every political fight we have is usually pretty stupid and misses the mark on accuracy of what the fuck people are even talking about or what the policy is. What I was going to say a little bit ago about the healthcare is just like, we live in this world where there's tons of experts doing research and working for think tanks and writing all these papers. And it'd be like, if only we could figure out that like sometimes markets don't work perfectly. And then like there are these things called market failures and the government should step in and do something about them. So whether it's SNAP, whether it's like FAA, right? Like, if one company had one FAA thing going on, it's like obviously a market failure if they're not all treated the same and regulated to make sure they're fair and safe and that flights take off on time or whatever, or don't, that they have a minimum separation of like a couple thousand feet so they don't crash. And like the idea that like we're just going to pretend like, oh, well, we can have all these people doing these important jobs that keep people's lives, safe.
Yeah,
And they'll just keep working for free because they
yeah,
will, whatever.
and
And like
yeah. Plus, it's
across the
annoying.
federal oh what?
Go ahead. You can finish that thought.
Well, I was gonna say across the federal government right now, you have people who are working part-time jobs because they like if you're a GS9 or a GS11, like you're not making money. Like you're not doing that for the paycheck, right? So all those people are probably doing things like working part-time jobs, driving Ubers and stuff, and like slowly a bunch of them. That's another thing. A lot of people have been getting exceptions. So like, okay, you're not getting paid, but your job is so important, we're gonna accept you, and now you have to come back, and also you're working for free now, and it's like, well like, what a shitty situation. So we're going to keep the government running, but just barely, but not pay
Yeah.
anybody because we can't bother to govern and
Yeah.
open
Right.
it. Like,
Yeah.
it's so, but don't worry, we'll pay some of you some of the money. And then, oh, yeah, we have a billionaire who donated $100 million. So that'll pay like 10% of you for a week. Like, that's it's like
Yeah.
band aids on band aids on band aids for a man made problem that the members of Congress created. I mean, it's so, it's infantile. That's my
Yeah.
word of the year, I think.
Infantile.
Yeah.
What is
Our
that
whole
joke?
what?
There's that joke that like everybody is 12.
Yeah. No, I think
We
it's
were talking
true.
about that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say, one thing that I think gets lost in the sauce on a lot of these like partisan debates and like the kind of daily politics is just that like how much of the government only exists because there was a problem that the government did not exist and did not address and did not fix or do anything to help people. So I think like a lot of times in debates, you get this idea like from Republicans where like Democrats just love government and putting their hands all over everything and obstructing everything and forcing their will upon everybody. And it's these government bureaucrats that just can't help but get involved in everything. But it's like you look at everything the government does, which when you look at like European governments, our government does considerably less than
Like
a
jack
lot of like
shit.
modern developed countries. But it's like the things we do, it's like, all the red tape and regulations you hear about is because like a lot of planes used to crash before we had all of these like safety standards with the FAA, right? Like companies would literally sell like piss and like maggoty milk, and people died constantly from bad food and bad
Yeah.
milk and things like that. So like everything the government does solved some problem that at least enough people in a agency or somewhere in the bureaucracy or
Or a
literally
subcommittee.
voters, yeah, or a subcommittee or voters getting together to approve something. Like all these things don't just come out of nowhere in a vacuum, springing up just because, like, somebody along the line just loved red tape, putting red tape all over everything. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, here's
in
you
terms
want to
of
hear a
like,
great example of that?
yeah, sure.
A funny example of that is like the Clean Water Act, which is just like in the 1970s, they're like, hey, we need to stop dumping pollution directly into
Yeah.
rivers.
Yeah.
And then
Hey,
they're
here's
like,
an idea. Our rivers should stop catching fire.
yeah. But then later on, they're like, okay, so you're not allowed to dump directly into the water. What about 10 feet offset from the
Yeah.
river? And
Yeah.
they're,
Or the tributary
yeah,
that leads to the river.
exactly. And then Republicans are like, oh, what's all this red tape? The Democrats are trying to regulate everything and ruin the economy. And it's like, well, no, it's like
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It's in the spirit of the law. You shouldn't dump shit in the rivers, but that's red tape to your point.
Yeah. It's like, the problems the government has solved, things like acid rain, just raining acid down upon everybody.
Well, it's like OSHA. People
Uh,
say, "Oh, I fucking hate OSHA," and it's like every
yeah.
OSHA rules because someone died in a factory somewhere, and they're trying to make sure
Yeah.
you don't also
Yeah.
die
Yeah.
in a factory
Yeah.
somewhere.
Even if it costs your boss like an extra quarter a day or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh,
That's so annoying.
this is so lame. I have to wear a hard hat." Yeah, because fucking shit falls on you and kills you. And then the
Yeah.
government, especially in the old days,
Yeah.
had to pay for your like widow and children. And then it's like, wow,
Yeah.
congrats,
Right.
your taxpayer money is going. I
Yeah.
don't know.
What was it that like triangle factory that like caught on fire like in like 1912 or whatever, where the employer like literally locked all the employees into the building every day for like 12 hours, like literally locked the door. And then a fire happened and a bunch of people died. And like, yeah, talking about that red tape. Oh, here comes big government telling me I can't lock in all my employees for 12 hours. It's so dumb.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
I
well.
gotta go soon,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this is
Any
funny.
last thoughts?
No, no last thoughts.
Okay. Thanks for listening, everybody. Check out the Halfway Post or the Halfway Cafe here on Substack. I write almost daily. I try to crack you up and write a lot of comedy. If you do like what we do here with the podcast and these live talks and my comedy, and then a lot more serious commentary, I have been doing more often. Subscribe for only $2.50. It's very cheap. I do a full-time 50% discount because I know I don't want to pay $5 for every Substack I enjoy, but I think $2.50 is a fair price. But thanks for listening, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. And it feels good for the Democrats are winning elections again. Isn't that nice? See you,
Yeah.
everybody.